Welcome to the AAOF's clinical podcast series. I'm Dr. Andrew Pucker. I'm a fellow in the Academy. I am also a diplomate in the cornea contact lens and refractive technology section, and I'll be your host today. Today, I'm joined with Dr. Justin Kwan. He is the Senior Manager of Myopia Management at CooperVision, and today we'll be discussing the 6-year MiSight data results. Dr. Kwan, could you just give us a little bit of background on why this is such an important study and why we should know about this?
Yeah, thanks Dr. Pucker and to the Academy Foundation for putting this together. And I think as CooperVision, we definitely like to lead with evidence-based treatments. And up to this point, thinking back nearly a decade, there weren't a lot of myopia studies that had followed children in that young, progressing age group for more than 2 years. And so, as we got the FDA approval, or planned for the study, the first 3 years were very important to add an additional year to, I guess at the time, the standard was 2 years. And so not only that, but to be able to extend it to years 4, 5, and 6, really gave us a lot of opportunity to look at myopia and how it changes and progresses, both untreated and treated. There's just a lot of learnings that we're able to draw out now that we have a 6 and 7 year study as well.
It's amazing we now have this FDA-approved product, and we got some good data. What new from this 6-year study can we gain that hasn't been talked about in the 3-year study that we recently learned about?
Yeah, so we have, 2 groups of kids with a little bit of different treatment history. Half of them got 6 years of MiSight, and the other got MiSight for 3 years. And that was the point where we took the control group, put them in the MiSight. It was the ethical thing to do so that now they get the benefit from treatments. And a lot of the results are pretty fantastic. For us as doctors and clinicians to know, MiSight, actually on average, 6 years in MiSight, you get less than 1 diopter of total progression. And as a -10 myself, I progressed the diopter in 1 year, and these kids progressed the diopter over 6 years. So it's a pretty dramatic slowing when you start to think about how quickly kids get worse in their myopia, particularly at age 8, 9, 10, and so on before they naturally slow down. Another data point from the study is that if we think about this really high bar of refractive stability, and that was defined as only a 1/4 diopter of total change or less. So to put that into context, that's a -2 10-year-old who 6 years later is getting their driver's license as a -2 25. Nearly 23% of the kids, the eyes, were able to achieve that very high bar. So 1 in 4 times, it really is within a 1/4 diopter. And that actually helps me think about some questions I get. Oh, your current power maximum is -6. Should I even start a -550? I'm like, you have a 1 in 4 chance it's not going to move past 575. So I'd say that there's not a lot of other similar efficacious products, at least with the 6-year kind of backing that. So I think FDA approval does mean a heck of a lot to parents. And I think that's a very important thing to factor in because that's based in our science and our data.
I think that gets to an important point. So in your opinion, what refractive error should you start treating patients with MiSight?
Yeah, well, our lowest power is -0.5, and I think most of us would be hard-pressed to maybe even convince ourselves or parents that this -0.5 unaided is maybe a soft 20/20 unaided. And so there's not a lot of motivation for the child to wear contact lenses for vision correction at that point. Maybe they can tell a difference, obviously, with -0.5 compared to nothing. But I think a lot of our doctors are starting to put children in MiSight around the -75 or -1, where they're starting to truly realize the benefits of vision correction. And the kids could probably care less about myopia control at this point, but the parents start to see, wow, this is benefiting them on the hockey rink, on the baseball field, in gymnastics. And at the same time, as a 2-in-1, they're getting vision correction and the slowing of their myopia progression. So we always say treat every child with myopia because a child's growing, their shoe size is growing, their pants are getting shorter, they're getting taller. So we know instead of waiting for progression, we say waiting is worse. You can't get that time back. We know that kids are growing, their eyes are growing, so treat every child with myopia. Yeah.
I totally agree. You got a 7-year-old who's -1. It's like, what, 99% chance they're going to keep progressing. So why not catch them early and hopefully get more bang for your buck?
And in fact, we kind of use that almost when cost might come into play a little bit. Like, what if a parent doesn't have the means to afford 100 something a month for a treatment program? Sometimes we might, in our back pocket, say, can we just get 1 year? Because when they're young, that year of slowing is the most important rather than waiting for them. And now they're a -3 and we got to work that much harder. And they already have accrued also that increased myopic maculopathy risk by that time. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, is there any other cool facts or findings from this study you want the listeners to know about?
Yeah, it's great to see that, when we have this control group that now got treatments, we're able to really see new things. It was almost a blessing in disguise, because while we lost the control group, now we can compare the treated to their untreated prior years. And what fell out of that analysis was that MySight works, and these kids respond. 90% of these kids respond to MySight. So only a small 10% did not respond. And how we know that is that their pre-treatment growth was kind of similar to their in-treatment growth. But thankfully, 90% of the kids did respond to the MySight treatment. And in my mind, the most important part is the proportional effect, meaning that the fastest progressors benefited the most. And the slower progressors still benefited. And as a -10 again myself, I would have potentially, it's hard to say, we don't have this in our study, been able to save half, 50% of my progression. So a -10 becoming a -5, now that's a gigantic benefit, not only in eye health risk, but also in quality of life again. So for the first time, being able to show a proportional effect, because maybe some of the previous literature was just saying, it's a fixed or absolute effect, right? And if we can only save a diopter, while that's important, is that the ceiling? And now we're able to show age by age, you add all that up together, for as long as a child wears MySight, whether they're a -1, -4, ethnicity, whatever age, they're gonna get their myopia progression rate reduced by about half. So that proportional effect is huge, because now, essentially, the fast progressors don't get shortchanged and everybody benefits.
I think those are some amazing findings. And I really like the one where you said the fast progressors get better benefit. It could have easily been the other way. So we now know that our really fast progressors can benefit maybe the most from myopia management.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So before we close out, is there any other cool stuff you want us to know about Cooper Vision coming down the pike?
Yeah, I think the priority of our company, of course, the contact lens for everyone, but in myopia specifically, we want to increase access, right? Every child around the world deserves the chance for their myopia to be slowed down, right? And the fastest we can get there is what we're going to back and support. So nearly 1 in 4 children do have meaningful astigmatism. And so for an on-label option for MySight Toric, depending on whether the FDA can help us get that fast-tracked or not, that'll serve, in my estimation, about 4 million more children in the United States alone. And of course, next year, we'll have SightGlass Vision, a spectacle lens option to really control myopia progression. Also a 3-year study done in over 20 sites around the country. So we always proceed with the evidence and the study design to back its efficacy. So we're really excited about that, particularly in younger children that may not be ready for contact lenses, and the ability for the spectacle lenses to control or to correct for astigmatism while controlling through this novel diffusion optics technology. It's a contrast mechanism, which is a little bit different than the myopic defocus, but also very exciting as we look at our portfolio to have a spectacle, a MySight, and then our Ortho-K, Paragon CRT, and IC for myopia management. So.
It's all great stuff, and I'm sure there's a lot more coming that you can't tell us about. But I'd like to thank you, Dr. Kwan, for being here. I'd like to thank the listeners for tuning in today, and I hope you all have a great night.
Thanks, Dr. Pucker. It's great being here.
Thank you.